As I was going through a bunch of different stats the other day, a question hit me. Who shoots the most open threes in the NBA? And how? This then led me to the next logical question: who shoots the least amount of open threes and how do those get generated? The answers were fascinating, particularly when I realized that it's Tyrese Maxey who's shooting the most wide open threes per game, and that it's an almost even blend of catch and shoot and off the dribble shots. Even more fascinating is that both of these shots go in most often when he shoots from the right wing. On the flip side, it might come as a surprise that a player shooting 40% overall takes the most contested threes, since that field goal percentage is usually reserved for the elite shooters with impeccable shot selection. Michael Porter Jr. has been toiling away in relative obscurity in Brooklyn while putting together all-star caliber numbers on a team near the bottom of the East. While he squeezes these shots off mostly from catching and shooting, there's another guy who's at almost exactly the same amount of tightly contested threes but shoots most of those off the dribble. And it should come as no surprise that it's James Harden, the guy who made the pull-up step-back jumper his signature move. Let's compare and contrast how these guys are generating their shots to see if there's a key to unlocking more open shots while limiting the ones that are almost impossible to make. With Maxey, what was even more fascinating was that the hottest spot on the floor for him was the same for both pull-ups and catch and shoots. And it makes sense that a righty coming off pin downs would shoot so well, since his right hip and elbow are more easily aligned when running to his left into the catch. Nick Nurse pulled out an old Spurs play called the loop that they'd run for Tony Parker, where Maxey hands off on the left side of the floor and then uses his speed to sprint along the baseline using 3 consecutive screens to get open on that right wing. The Lakers tried to guard this both times by switching off of each screen, which means no less than 4 defenders guard him at some point before catching LaRavia trying to cheat over the top of the final pin down, which allows Maxey to expertly read this and flare into the open space for the shot. Even though Hayes got there towards the end, if a good shooter has a clear view of the basket at this point in the shot and the defender is more than 5 feet away, it's open. But they don't need to have him expend that much energy. Starting near the three-point break, he can just rub his man off a pin down, and notice how he hops back to his right a couple of feet after seeing his man try to cheat underneath the screen. This is how you turn a slightly open shot into a wide open one. Using the big man on the weak side of the screen takes advantage of the big man defender, who normally hates to have to step up on the perimeter, especially as someone as fast as Maxey, and it's why there isn't help on these. While we expect good shooters to hit a lot of open threes, Maxey is hitting a scorching 59.1% of his right wing threes on these open looks, which makes you wonder why Nick Nurse isn't running even more actions to get him open on that right wing. And what's equally amazing is that he's elite from that same spot off the dribble, despite generating most of these looks in an entirely different way. The pick and roll to his right makes a lot of sense, so he can utilize his dominant right-hand dribble. And most of the open looks he gets are when he attacks the big man out of a switch. There's a similarity to the pin down in that the screener's man is so worried about Maxey's speed that he'll give him a ton of room to work with. But Maxey doesn't settle for these bombs. He'll probe the mid-range after the switch and then flow into a step-back 3 with plenty of daylight on Towns. And watch how he utilizes an unconventional right-left while moving to his right. This serves to catch Bam off guard and late to the contest, while also allowing Maxey to anchor his right foot into the floor for proper alignment and no drift once he gets into the air. The pullback is another strong move Maxey has when he doesn't get a switch off the ball screen, as elite defender Mikal Bridges found out in the fourth quarter, which got him around 10 feet of space to get this off. How about this downhill drive against a defender desperate to keep up? He double jabs the front right foot into an outside to inside cross, leaving his man stuck in the mud as Maxey rises up for yet another wide open shot. All he needs is a slight advantage on his defender, whether he uses the screen or rejects it like he does here. Then going into a right foot skip, drag the back foot, and then step back 10 feet while the defender flails to get an arm up too late. When you see Michael Porter Jr. trying to get his three-point shots off, and what happened with his brother, you might wonder if the whole system is rigged. And you should feel that way, which is why I want you to delete any sportsbook app you might have on your phones right now. They're a complete scam. Okay, did you delete them? Because now I want you to download Polymarket. They're the world's largest prediction market where you can use the knowledge you get from my videos to make informed decisions in real time on any game in any state. Polymarket makes it easy by displaying the odds and percentage, and you just pick a team to win. You don't get locked out like sportsbooks do, which means you can cash out of a position at any time during the game. or get in on the action after the game already started. Remember when the Spurs fell behind by 16 points around halftime? Don't get upset. This is a buy-in moment where you could have ridden their momentum all the way to a victory as the Spurs came back in the second half to take it. Here's how simple it is to make a pick, as I'm thinking the Knicks are going to beat the Timberwolves for a nice payout. If you win $100 on a sportsbook site, they'll take around $9 in fees. But Polymarket matches you up with someone else in a true market, so they'll only charge you 1 penny on the transaction. Best of all, use my code BBall and they'll give you $10 free. No credit card, no deposit, nothing. Just make sure to use my code when signing up so you can skip the line and literally get $10 to play with for free. Join the revolution with Polymarket. Michael Porter Jr. ends up taking the most tightly contested threes, ahead of Harden by a good distance. And what's fascinating is that 69% of his threes are off the catch, compared to Harden, who shoots 79% of his threes off the dribble. Here's a similar action to Maxey, but on the left wing, where he shoots a ridiculous 52.4% overall, as the screen doesn't get him much space, but with a smaller defender, he can just rise up above him. And they like to skip the ball to him as he spots up on the weak side, but these passes take time to get there, and the defense is able to recover for close contests that don't seem to bother him much at all. The offense definitely looks for him as much as they can. They're just not able to utilize it to get him open. There's not a ton of clever sets that I saw from the Nets in the half court, so a ho-hum high pick and roll doesn't get much penetration, leaving Porter Jr. to just moonball this over an incredible contest from Dyson Daniels. This was supposed to be a pick and roll where the roll man flows into a cross screen for MPJ. I also think they missed some sort of screen action on the weak side here that might have gotten the defender away from hugging MPJ, and as a result, he can't get open. The offense dies on that left wing with another great defender draped all over him, and it doesn't matter. He puts his feet together to jump, probably can't see much of the rim, and gets it off right over the fingertips of Scotty Barnes as it drops clean through. This offense isn't an easy watch, as it stagnates so often that defenses are loading up, knowing they won't get burned by great spacing and timely cuts, as both MPJ and Claxton cut to the same spot, forcing MPJ to run away from the basket with little time on the shot clock and hoist this one up over Jason Tyson's contest. Here's a baseline out of bounds that ends up with both MPJ and Terrence Mann standing next to each other in the weak side corner. And he's left to do a multi-jab step ISO move as the shot clock ticks down before hitting again on that left wing. If we're looking to find the best shooter in the league, then it's hard to point to anyone better than Michael Porter Jr., since his numbers are incredible despite an offense that's not getting him open and defenders keying in on his three-point shots since they make up half of his total field goal attempts. If you didn't like watching the Nets offense, then I'll have to warn you that what the Clippers do can be considered even more problematic. And I gotta tell you, the fact that Harden can be shooting above league average is incredible, considering how many tightly contested threes he takes off the dribble. They're ranked near the bottom in passes per game for a reason, and Harden is left with all manner of grenade that he has to force up to the basket with defenders all over him. He shoots 25% of his threes with under 4 seconds left on the shot clock. And while part of it is that he's the guy who shoots all their end of quarter shots, it's also due to the fact that he simply doesn't move much in the half court. If you focus only on Harden in many of their half court sets, you'll quickly realize that no coach would draw up an offense where your best player just stands in place for 9 or 10 seconds way out on the perimeter. It's no wonder that these are the shots he ends up getting. Add to that a tendency to have confusion with what the set is and where players should be going. Ty Lue begins by pointing out to everyone where they should go as Harden slowly brings the ball up against a very set defense. Chris Paul seems confused as Harden tells him he's supposed to hand off towards the corner. Then he has to tell Kobe Brown to come up the ball screen. Kobe Sanders doesn't want to attack. And now there's no time left to do anything but a quick pick and roll with 3 seconds on the clock and a burp up of a bad shot. Watch Zubac throw up his hands, unclear what the play call is, with Chris Dunn having to point out the pin down in the corner for him. Sanders seems confused on his cut. Zubac is trying to screen for Dunn, who doesn't want it. Meanwhile, Harden has to stand in place 50 feet from the basket for 10 seconds until someone finally comes up the ball screen. There's absolutely no spacing in this direction. They need Dunn to wave Collins out of there, and Harden now has no choice. I cannot stress enough how amazed I am that Harden is shooting as well as he is, considering how often he's got to hoist these up at the end of the shot clock off the dribble with a defender all up in his grill. Imagine how well he'd shoot if he could play in an offense that had a lot of passing and movement. Now, part of the reason the offense doesn't have it is because of how Harden plays. It's his choice to hold the ball as long as he does, and it's his decision to make a pass and then stand around for a while, making it that much easier for the defense to key in on him. But he is the godfather of the step back. For a reason, and he's still making them with just enough regularity to keep that three-point percentage in decent territory. That said, it isn't a surprise to me that both the Clippers and Nets have a very low offensive rating rank based on how their prime shooters have to struggle so mightily to get these shots off. I'd love to point to Philly having a very high ranking, but they're a little better than average. But it's through no fault of what Maxey is doing to take so many great shots generated out of the legitimate fear of his pure speed with the ball. It's a tale of three shooters, and it's fascinating how decision-making and the offensive attack can affect this as much as it does.